All right, Mr. Matt Selman, you just got back from SDCC. How was it in 2024?
We had a really great panel. We really produced it well. We had, Kevin Smith was the moderator. We had like the special guest star of Seth Green from Hilarious Actor and his producing partner Harv Harvatine, who were like have this amazing stop motion animation company called Stupid Buddies, and they're doing this project. We announced at Comic-Con that we have this stop motion parody of the character Venom named Denim, who are talking pants, talking symbiotic pants, and it's very funny, Halloween Treehouse of Horror 35 idea, and the pants are so funny, and the fact that they're made of actual real denim, they're not animation or computers, but actual cloth, I think is super cool. So we had Kevin Smith, we had all these surprise videos we released. We did this cool thing where a fan online gave us the idea of recording the scream of the crowd at the Comic-Con, and we're going to use that in the audio of the Treehouse of Horror. So it's just a really Kevin Smith, who's so great and such a beautiful man, and he's really a big fan and so funny, and we did so much stuff. It just wasn't like just talk, yap. It was like just tons of original produced content. So then I finally got into, after years of failing, used my amazing success to get me into the big Marvel Comics Hall H Super presentation, which I'd always wanted to get into one of those. And this was a doozy. Because they did the big Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom live reveal, and like,
what was the energy like in that room?
It was like a million religions exploding at once. It was so intense, and people were crying and screaming, and amazingly, so they announced only one actor is so good that they could play Doctor Doom, if people are familiar with this at all. And
people are familiar. Yes,
I was thinking, oh wow, Daniel Day-Lewis, cool. But of course, I could see why they picked Robert Downey Jr. in some kind of clone variant, comic booky reworking of Tony Stark's genius into evil somehow. Who knows how?
It kind of felt a bit of break the emergency glass a little bit as well. I think.
I think it was like a good move. Like, it's better than bringing back Iron Man, Oh, Iron Man's not dead.
It's creative. I'll give them that. That's all that matters.
Those guys are so smart. And I'm sure they're going to figure out a way to make it not feel like emergency glass and make it feel earned. Like, I know they're going to work hard on it. That's for sure.
We can only hope. Well, that's cool that you got to be in the room, though. That's a moment that's going to live on forever.
I always wanted that. I always would read about it, and I feel like that was good. Now I don't need to do it again. Now I can just read about it 5 minutes later and like okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, but it's one of those moments though where you're going to be people are going to be talking about that moment for a long time, and to be able to say that you were there is pretty cool. Pretty cool.
My friend was next to this little kid who was just like sobbing with joy. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, that's what it was like when the Simpsons movie first premiered, right?
Sure. Yeah. sobbing with there was maybe relief was the feeling.
Did you know that the thing is So I think you guys obviously premiered it in the States, maybe at a special premiere, but we were one of the first countries to get it. I put up a post on our social media. I've still got my original ticket stubs for when I went to see it. And we got it on the 26th at 10 a.m., which is a Thursday. You guys got it on the 27th in your cinemas. And you guys are behind us. So we essentially got it 2 days before you. So it's strange that we got it before you guys. But I remember at the premiere when the movie finished, and I kid you not, it got a standing ovation, and I've never experienced it before, and I've never experienced it since.
That's pretty great. Yeah, well, our Australian fans are always very, very appreciative and cool. I think I remember that, reading about it in Australia first, and was thinking, is this like payback for the Australia episode?
No, so the thing is, everyone thinks we don't like that episode. We love that episode. It's almost, we obsessed about that episode. But SDCC, so you're talking about denim. So you brought in Seth Green's, Seth Green's company. I was going to ask you whether it was your animator. So you brought in him. So is it just the jeans that are stop motion?
Just the talking pants, yeah.
How does that work? That must be a lot of effort, right?
Well, there's that. You can see what I put online. That kind of the little puppet model they're animating.
Yeah.
You can insert that into this, I'm sure. And so yeah, and then they can just composite it somehow. I don't know how the technology works, but they've been fantastic. I mean, it's weird. You feel a little more guilty telling stop motion animators to add something or make changes because you can sort of think in your head, oh man, that's so much more work of just sitting there, click, move, like endlessly doing that. We're like drawing animators on computers, you can just break their spirits anytime you want because yeah, they'll figure it out. It's not computers. Where the tactile experience of cloth and wood is more real.
Did you guys get them to do their side first and then you animated to it? Is that how it worked?
No, we do our side first. We sent them, then we send it to them, and then they're still making their part right now. They haven't finished yet. Our part is done.
They haven't finished it yet?
No.
Wow,
Well, Halloween doesn't air till early November anyway.
I suppose, yeah, it's not the premiere. It's like Bart's birthday. I want to get to Bart's birthday as well because the amount of guest stars you announced for that one. So what do we got? We got, is it John Cena? You got Danny DeVito returning as Uncle Herb. You got Joel McHale was another one.
Oh yeah, Joel McHale. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Conan O'Brien, huge get. We're going to talk about Conan O'Brien in a minute. Is there someone I'm missing? There was some. Oh, Tom Hanks, of course.
Tom Hanks.
That's a lot of guest stars for one episode. You didn't want to space them out a bit over the course of the season?
I think I don't want to reveal the premise of the show, but I think when you see it, you'll understand
why it is this way.
Why it is so jam-packed with big personalities from the history of the show.
Yeah.
Because Tom Hanks was in the Simpsons movie, if you recall.
He was. Yeah.
And but it's funny. I will say this, Brendan, as you know, during part of the writer's strike, I was in Australia and New Zealand, as you know all too well. And the idea of this episode came out of a conversation with a journalist, either a New Zealand or an Australian journalist, who accidentally gave me the idea for this episode that I don't want to spoil, but.
And you don't want to credit.
He will know who it was when it happens, and we will be able to recreate that. And I can give him credit.
I'm still waiting for that Bluey couch gag that I gave you the idea for.
Yeah, that idea. We're definitely. Bluey did their own version of the Simpsons intro on their own.
Yeah.
And we want to do the Bluey couch gag. Big, fancy couch gags are hard though because our shows are so. We only have 20 minutes and 40 seconds per episode, so it's like if you're going to do if Bluey creators in Brisbane, if you're listening to this, I believe Brisbane, we as the most successful show on Disney Plus, and we're the second most successful. We would love to do a collab, as they call it, but we just haven't had the time or energy to find the great placement for it. Maybe, but there's definitely ways to do it.
How about Bluey Simpsons short for Disney Plus?
That would be cynical. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Competing to see who can be number one.
I mean, it's weird. Those shorts are funny. Their shorts are kind of fun. Their shorts are good because they introduce younger viewers to the show.
Yeah.
So, I kind of see them as they're like candy cigarettes you give to the kids on the playground, and then to get them hooked on the real deal, the nicotine that is the actual show. But there's definitely candy. They're not sweet nicotine.
I was talking about this with Michael Price the other day about how, do you guys take the mentality of when you write the show now that you're writing for kids today, or you're writing for people who have always enjoyed the show? Or is it a bit of a combination? You have to sort of blur the lines.
Well, it's definitely in our heads that we're so popular with kids, and that being on Disney Plus has become almost like a rite of passage for so many, I'll say 8 to 12-year-olds to get super into the show for a couple years and then move on to the next craziest thing, right? But let that be part of their satirical animation education, right? So that's so, we're so proud of that role in young people's lives to do that. But I wouldn't say we're writing for kids. I just feel like we're writing for ourselves, as writers and comedy writers and citizens of the goofy world, that we just want to make ourselves laugh and know that we're telling good stories, and have Jim Brooks think the stories are emotional and transformative and, you know, gripping. And
Is he still asking where's the emotion? Is that still his thing?
sure, I mean, we're always thinking emotion for Jim, for sure, which is what all writers should also be thinking in everything, unless you're writing something, you know, just deliberately nihilistic, which is fine. But if it's sort of in any way a popular thing you're creating, it has to be emotion first. And from emotion comes comedy. From emotion comes everything else.
100%. Well, we touched on earlier Bart's birthday, so all the guest stars. Conan O'Brien, whose idea was it to bring him back? Obviously, like Michael said that you guys contacted him. What was it like having Conan? Because you weren't working on the show when Conan was there, were you, originally? You weren't there for the first run.
No, but I've met him over these.
Yeah.
The idea to have him in it, I don't remember who thought of that.
Okay. But what was it like having him back in there though? Was it just
great. He was super funny. He was very on. He was very like complimentary. I think he showed the script to one of his kids first to make sure it was like funny enough, which I thought was fun.
Yeah. He seems to treasure his time on the show.
Well, people know about it. You know, I mean, the fans certainly have like, I'm going to use the word hagiography. Look it up, everybody. For Conan's time here. I mean, he's probably only here for 18 months or, 26 months or something. Not to say he wasn't amazing and his shows aren't maybe the most beloved in the history of the show, or the era when he was here is possibly deservedly the most beloved. But in the geo history of the show, it was almost a blink of the eye, right?
Yeah.
Like where Grandpa Me has been there for like the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, all the later weird eras people don't like.
How many years have you been there now? It'd be close to 30 now, right? 25-ish?
Well, if you started, 20-something. Because I started in January 97. So now 27.
Yeah, wow, You're going to be celebrating your 30th anniversary soon. You're going to get your own special.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up soon. Not the show, people. Just
No, I honestly, I think we discussed this when you were down here when we went out for dinner. I just can't see The Simpsons ever ending. Even if it's not in its current form, it'll evolve into something. It'll never end.
Never end.
No.
Our dinner, it was our dinners, right?
Yeah. Oh, that was a great time, wasn't it?
3 places. We did a crawl every week.
Thank you, Phil.
Crawl, me, Brendan, and Phil Rosenthal from Everybody Loves Phil.
Everybody feed Phil.
Everybody loves Raymond,
somebody feed Phil. Yes, but everybody does love Phil. That's the thing. Yeah.
So certainly walking around with Phil in Australia and New Zealand, people love him. Like, I knew he was popular, but I didn't know people would cry when they saw him on the streets.
Yeah.
What they were like, oh, Phil, here comes the accent. Sorry, people. Oh, Phil, my partner had spinal fusion, and we watched your episodes, and they got him through the healing from the spinal fusion. My partner. You guys love partners over there, which is a very evolved thing. You don't know partner? Yeah, it's good. Well, who knows what the deal is? Just partner. Your partners.
Yeah, but it's sort of their way of saying, might not be married, might not be this, doesn't matter. Partner.
Boyfriend, hanging together, just dating, or they were partners.
Yeah. I have that one memory of we were in one restaurant and this chef came out the back and just started crying, and I thought, wowee, this guy's serious.
He's like a religious figure because he's so positive and he's about exploring and being open and, celebrating and getting to know people and not, dividing and being gross. And, he's not a snob either. He's not like some food snob. He's like a regular guy who likes hot dogs that snap. He's not like, he likes, a really good pastrami sandwich. He's not a, molecular gastronomy foodie. He doesn't have foodie snob energy, even though he loves food. And I mean, definitely traveling with him. One of the great things, what happened was during the writer's strike, Phil had a speaking tour in Australia and New Zealand, and I was like his one-man Elvis entourage, very privileged role. And usually when I travel with my family, I'm the one looking at my phone like, okay, we can't waste a meal. We have to eat at the best places. We have to eat at the most interesting places and most beloved places, or the most essential places. Like we just go to some random, boring tourist restaurant. We're never coming back here. We can't waste it. So I'm not fun to travel with. So But on this trip, Phil is that guy. He's the one more worried than me about, like, we have to find the best, most cool places. So I just sit back and enjoy the ride. It was possibly, no offense to my family, best vacation of my life. Sorry, family.
I'm sure they understand. I'm sure
Sorry,
they understand.
family. You're great, but
families are good at times, but you know,
they're
sometimes
good
you need
at times.
sometimes.
You're
But
with
Phil
them.
Phil Rosenthal.
Emotionally heightened dynamic in many different ways, that, as you know. And with Phil Rosenthal, it's just like, where's the best meat pie? Like, that was the only dynamic.
The thing is, you didn't tell me it was Phil. I didn't clue in because you just sent me a text. You said, "Do you mind if my friend Phil comes as well for dinner?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. I didn't care. Bring whatever friend you want."
I did a surprise on you.
You did, and I got there and I walked in the hotel and I see you standing there. I was like, "Oh shit, it's that Phil."
That's why I'm so blasé with my famous friends.
Honestly, and for about 5 minutes, I'm just thinking, "Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit."
But he's such a great guy. We just hung out with everybody, you know, on that trip. It's so hot here.
Warm where you are, yeah.
It's under there. That's better.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most fun times of my life.
Yeah. Well, I remember last thing. I remember when on my way home, I messaged my wife and I said, "He's one of those people where you're glad sometimes the good guys win." You know, Phil, lovely guy, rich as anything, hugely successful, and you're glad that he is.
Yeah, we just, you know, so we did like a pub crawl, right? Or a bar food crawl. We went to 3 different bars and ordered like 5 things at each one of these, their favorite little snackies. I mean, we ate so much. We covered, this is Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we covered a lot of food territory in one night.
We did indeed. Yeah, it was a great time. The first time I ever ate sea urchin.
Right, and now you're addicted. I mean,
yes, now it was great. Well, if I could afford it, yeah.
It's a crippling financial problem for your family. I spent all my podcast money on tongues of urchin.
Yeah, delicious.
They call them tongues. The little strips.
But Bart's birthday, so you got all the guest stars there. I'm assuming throughout the season you got plenty of other guest stars that you haven't announced yet?
Yeah, who are they? Well, Susie Essman from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah,
who's
very
like,
cool.
you know, plays Susie Green on the show and is always screaming at Larry. She's in a show.
You need to get Larry on.
Well, we have an idea.
Tuned.
We have an idea. I bet you'll say no, but we have an idea.
Oh, okay then. That's all we need. An idea. Yeah.
I won't be surprised if he said no, but we do have a good idea. Andy Serkis came back.
Yes, that's right. He's got that trilogy episode. Yeah.
Another the Bray Bradbury trilogy, and he plays a couple parts in that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, now he's directing the new Gollum movie, which I also hope they know what they're doing with that, because I'll definitely watch it. See what they do. It's Gollum's wife and kids, maybe. I don't know. He had a family that we never knew about, and they died or left him because he was annoying.
Middle class family.
Yeah, he was married to like a nice hobbit lady and had 2 half Gollum kids. And
Would he be a good father though, do you think?
no, I'm sure it ended in Middleshire divorce.
I want to touch on good ideas. You know what I thought was a good idea? That 90s show. We reviewed that this week,
Okay,
right?
Here we go. We're in. Here we are.
So many people I've
Hate
read
that show.
hated it, right? And
Still
Guy
hate
and I watched it this week, and we went, "What are you doing? What are you talking about? This was just so much fun."
Well, it speaks to the emotional connection people have with the flashback romance episodes, right? That people love the way we was, and the like I Married Marge, and the all the flashback Marge Homer romance shows from the classic years, which were so kind of groundbreaking in their time because they did like culturally specific, the B Sharps episode.
Yeah,
right.
Which I had comparisons with this one. I wanted to bring that up because I watched this going, you watch Homer's Barbershop Quartet and you can enjoy the episode, but if you're a Beatles fan, you enjoy it more. This 90s show, you can enjoy it, but if you're a Nirvana fan, you enjoy it more.
For sure. And so I just rewatched it before just now to refresh my memory, and it was fun. It was a fun rewatch, and there definitely was a ton of stuff I'd forgotten. And but it really was me wanting to write a flashback romance show. Like I was jealous of the one where he and Marge go to see Empire Strikes Back, and he ruins it for everybody, right? And and they when as a Simpsons fan, and they were doing the shows that came out in the 90s and they were doing 80s jokes, that was kind of a revolutionary idea. And I mean, it seems like so many people have ripped it off now, right? Including us ripping off ourselves. But, that was very, a big idea that was one of the reasons people really connected to the show as something super original in like the first generation of Simpsons fans, right? And 100%. Those shows are really also have great emotion and great tenderness, but they're also jam packed with retro cultural observations with the irony of what happened later, yes, mixed in. And so I was definitely watching this. I was like, oh, I was jealous of that. I wanted to do one, so I did one. But the reason people hate this episode so deeply, they write it off completely. Which, write it off, people. The residual calculator doesn't know that you've written it off. The money still comes in. Is because they feel it's this term retcon, right? A retroactive continuity, overlap. Which, and I don't want to sound defensive, but I will. It was never our intent to retcon the other flashback romance cultural episodes, of which this is a love letter to. Speaking of romance, this is a love letter to those episodes. And we were actually very cautious not to duplicate or contradict anything that happened in the flashback episodes that took place in the late 70s and early 80s and what have you, that people so emotionally have connected to. Perhaps the only contradiction, having just watched it, that I can think of that's hard contradiction is the way into the mini golf in pregnancy, right?
I was going to ask you about that. Was that your was it an homage to the originals, or was that your way of trying to make it seem like it's still part of the same universe?
I guess we were trying to dovetail it. If I were to do it again, I would have maybe made it match more exactly so that, in a way, both plot timelines could have led to the exact same mini golf castle clothing dialogue. That I don't know how close it is to what the first mini golf scene was. I believe there was a joke, Marge, maybe this is the champagne talking, right? Is that?
Yeah.
So it's definitely, that's okay. Guilty as charged. That's the retcon element. But in no way were we trying to say this is the new thing. This is not Marvel, who also have clearly thrown their hands up with continuity, with Deadpool and Wolverine, where the thing is just F it. This is all insane. Multiverses are insane. They never make sense. Just let's have fun with it, right? Marvel is saying that, let alone The Simpsons, for whom deliberate contradiction and absurdity and silliness is in the DNA of the show, is evidenced by the most beloved joke from the well-deserved glory years of Homer saying, it's a cartoon, cartoons don't have to make sense, and another Homer walks by out the window, right? That's why you love the show, fans. That kind of joke of messing around and being silly with continuity and not taking yourself too seriously. So there is, as Lisa noticed, God, I'm really going off here, aren't I?
That's good.
As Lisa notices in that 90s show episode, there is a time window that was never addressed in the DNA of the canon of the show, which is Homer and Marge are in their late 30s, Bart is 10, yet they met in high school. There's a huge amount of unaccounted for time there, a giant, massive chunk of time. So this all could have happened not in the 90s, because The Simpsons was on in the 90s, but again, if you want to do flashback episodes about characters that have a 35-year lifespan where they haven't gotten any older, you either have to have the flashbacks take place in a different time, or you have to just have all the flashbacks lock into a decade that was so far in the past. Neither version makes sense. There's either going to be contradictions and goofiness, or there's going to be, in my opinion, a sort of unsatisfying repetition of 70s bullshit, which you would or just don't do flashback episodes at all.
Which wouldn't mean anything to kids watching the show in 2007. 70s
Right.
flashbacks.
No, I mean, to them, I mean, even that timeline in the Marvel Universe way of thinking of things, even that timeline doesn't add up anymore, right? I mean, in this one, the current timeline, Maggie was born in 2023.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And Mark was born in 2013.
Yeah.
So we could do a That 2000s show about more unaccounted
Oh,
for
please do that.
time in, that would sort of, would that make sense decade-wise? Maybe.
Were you surprised by the response it got originally?
Well, not surprised, but I was, you know, it makes people feel good sometimes to like have a strong reaction because they care about something. So like, I mean, they wouldn't describe the feeling as good, but to me, it's a powerful reaction, and that's always better than apathy. I think it's a little bit lazy or kind of first thought to say, again, it's a retcon when we really tried to say this is a playful, you know, joyride with the Simpsons continuity that was clearly not trying to change what specifically happened in the classic flashback cultural romance episodes. So, but there's some people, you know, people just love to think the first thing that comes into their mind and think, oh, I'm going to lock in on that for the rest of my life. The first thought. Lock it in. Just lock in on the first thought. So that's okay. But then, you know, I watched it and I felt just now that we really did earn our love letter credentials to those beloved types of flashback cultural episodes, in that tons of jokes about the 90s, tons of music, tons of culture, tons of costumes and haircuts and TV shows and trends. I mean, it's as dense as any of these things. And I thought it, with a section of a couple jokes I didn't love anymore, I thought it really held up. And the animation is really good. It's that great kind of late, right before we went digital and everything started to look cold and ugly.
Who made that decision about changing the animation?
Not me.
Okay.
It might have been just we were feeling out the technology at the time, and then it kind of got away from us. But
Yeah. But the episode though, it looks great, as you were saying.
it looks great, and the directing is great. And there's that thing at the end of it where like he's like Professor Moose pounds him into the sand. I mean, that is silly. That is silly, but that's a little. I don't do stuff that goofy myself these days, but it's silly. It was good.
We talked about that moment, and we sort of said that
Me,
the
you,
guy
and-
had
You and Guy.
Guy and I, yeah, because we did
Not
a review.
not you and me, and I forgot.
No, sorry. So Guy and I, and that moment there, like, whilst it's goofy, I was saying the guy has been such a douchebag for the entire episode that you just want to see him get some comeuppance, and it's an animation, so it's goofball comedy.
And I don't think it didn't really stick out as a sore thumb in an episode that is so many crazy things happen. I mean, I really liked the rock star who hates being a rock star, you know, heroin, grunge, chic. I thought that really held up pretty nicely, and all that kind of Cobain stuff. Because I myself, like much like Mike Reese and Al Jean, like iconic Simpsons writers, you know, who were running the show for these classic flashback cultural romance episodes, they were in high school in the 70s and college in the early 80s, you know? I was in high school in the 80s and college in the early 90s. So,
Okay. Yep.
like, this was a little bit of my college experience, a little bit. My alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, of which there is a little Easter egg. There's a famous Klaus Oldenburg statue of a large broken button, which we snuck into the background of the campus there. You know, it was a little bit of that kind of being introduced to cultural revisionism, which now seems to be a big hot button cultural fascism issue that people can't sort of accept that we can ever say anything bad about the people who built what we have, which, not that they were all bad, but, you know, there's just like two sides of it, right?
Yeah.
But now watching it, I felt like this sort of reinforced various reactionary, hateful thought.
I do feel that alone, the episode didn't feel dated because of that. Because I
It's
think
so
in college,
crazy, right?
it just still feels like that's what happens today. It's crazy, yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, I guess personally I feel that there has to be some kind of middle ground between the founding fathers are monsters, and the founding fathers were heroes. You know what I mean? Only heroes, only monsters. Like they were, products of their time. They could have been a lot worse, and in other countries were much, much worse. But to acknowledge the things they did that caused, big problems that we still haven't really dealt with, like slavery. You have to acknowledge that too. There's got to be a way. Oh, but there isn't. Oh, there isn't. Oh, there's no way. Okay, good. One or the other. Great.
Where's the eraser?
We'll just burn half the textbooks.
I thought you brought up the product of its time, though, because we reviewed some of these season 18, 19 episodes. That's what we're up to now, season 19, obviously. And there's some jokes here where you go, this wouldn't fly now, but you know what? This was 2007, and it flew then. It's just a product of its time.
But there was nothing that I was like that I thought was super dated in this one.
Not in this episode. I'm just talking in season 19, there's been some jokes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, this episode, there's nothing in this episode that sort of caught me off guard. I thought it was just more non-dated than anything.
I love the professor guy. He's such an annoying version of that guy. I actually have a little Easter egg for your fans. So remember the trilogy of Error?
One of my favorite episodes
right?
ever.
Thank you. And so that was based on the movie Go, written by a friend of mine who's a screenwriter, this guy John August. So we named Professor Stefan August. I did after John August. Although, well, they're both pretty woke, those guys. But John is bald for one thing. He doesn't have beautiful hair, and he's in no way annoying. So that's also different.
Did you ever tell him that?
I don't remember.
Do you find you do that often, where you sort of base things on people in your real life, and you just never get around to tell them, oh, that's based on you?
Yeah, or like it'll be based on a little funny thing from their life or the name of their cat or something, and then you just forgot. You never told them. Yeah, and they never knew.
I wanted to ask with Marge here, right? There's a moment where they're on the IKEA beds, and she says, "I don't want to have sex before marriage." Mm-hmm. Did you put that in there so that viewers wouldn't assume she was sleeping with the professor?
When she's with Homer,
yeah,
we just thought it was important again in terms of the canon, beloved canon, is Marge was a virgin when she slept with Homer and got impregnated with Bart. I believe that is locked in. So like even the scene where she is making out with the professor, which I just was watching, I'm like hoping it didn't go much further. I mean, it ends with them having a little smooch sesh, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that was just it. I mean, he had to ask for permission for every step of the way, so that was, again, consent is important, people. But so I'm hoping it just was a little smooch.
I do feel that Marge came across more poorly than Homer in this episode. I will say that. I just think that she gave Homer the canon story of The Simpsons is that Homer held Marge back, right, and all that. Now, he did have a big angry response to her getting into college, but then he says, you know what, I'm going to get a job at a job that I hate to pay for your education. And then she leaves him for the professor.
Right. Well, but that's like a real story. No, definitely she is like immature.
Yeah.
Right. And having a kind of confusing self-discovery with her and her own evolution being more important than, a real relationship, which is a real thing that happens all the time, right? That someone leaves their small town and sees the big city, and then they're like, I've changed, and even if the small town people were supporting them along the way, they feel like they're a different person now. But then so I mean, I like episodes where Marge is flawed,
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done a lot. I can't remember any of them, but we've definitely done a lot where she is flawed and is because she's such a good person, and we know she wants, unlike Homer per se, she tries to be a good person, and her self-image of herself and her image in the town is that of someone who's really nice and doesn't make enemies and isn't rude or have temper tantrums, unlike her and also she's married to someone that is such a destructive vortex of problematic behavior that, like, on some level she sort of enjoys being the superior one, right? But Marge, screwing up and being selfish or being greedy or those kinds of stories, and having her realize that is usually a pretty satisfying journey.
But with this episode here, what was the vibe you were going for with it? Because I was getting, for some reason, the year 1997 kept coming into my head. 1997 teen comedy love story kind of vibe. That's what I was getting from it. What were you going for?
Well, I just sort of wanted to do my own '90s version of one of those classic shows, and there isn't, and then I just wanted to use all the cultural tropes of that era to tell the story and just to jam in as many things as I could. There wasn't there was this movie that came out in the '90s that was called PCU that I don't think I ever saw, but was sort of about liberal colleges in America in the early '90s, and so that was not really direct inspiration, but it was sort of a thing. And
I was getting. Do you remember the film Loser from 2000? I was getting that kind of vibe as well because it's Mina. She's sort of having a relationship with the professor. So I was sort of seeing that came out in 2000, but it's still kind of that era as well.
There's also that movie there's Kicking and Screaming, which I think is an early, what's his face, Noah Baumbach movie, which is about people in college and but there's also the thing in Animal House, where the guy's girlfriend is sleeping with the professor, and that's like a classic, sort of love story dynamic of the kind of well, that particular story hasn't aged well from Animal House, unlike every other joke in that movie, which is aged like fine wine. But it's funny, like as whatever Gen X, if that's the generation I am, where we didn't really have so much like a big movie that was like our cultural movie, like say for the '60s it would be Born to Be Wild. What's the one with the guy on the motorcycle?
Do you mean Easy Rider?
Easy Rider, there it is. Grandpa, Gen X grandpa forgets everything. Easy Rider and movies and sort of Bonnie and Clyde, which also was a period piece, but that was a seminal counterculture film in its way, and many others, I'm sure. But like there was Reality Bites, right, with slackers in it. That was that.
That's very similar, yeah.
And then there were romantic comedies with edges of that, but none of those movies were transformative or unbelievably memorable. I mean, people liked them, but the Gen X '90s cultural, grunge, coffee bar, irony, Douglas Copeland, who's a novelist who wrote books about that, McJob, kind of latchkey kids who were sort of overeducated and undermotivated was the kind of, and cynical and sarcastic was the, and like nihilistic music, that was that was, I'll just say those song lyrics, just listening to them again, those grunge hating grunge lyrics are so, I'm sorry, they just make me laugh.
So were you a Nirvana fan?
Well, everyone was a Nirvana fan, and certainly Kurt Cobain dying was like a kind of John Lennon dying, Elvis dying.
Where were you moment? Yeah.
Where were you moment for sure, for people my age, but writing those lyrics of just kind of ridiculous rebellion against nothing and boredom are really funny, and I certainly love the.
Did you write the songs?
I did write. Yeah, I wrote. The Room wrote them, and I wrote, but I definitely wrote a lot of them myself. I love the worst lyric ever written is, what is it, tears from my eyes.
You kiss or something?
No. That's it's he's from talking about tears, watery tears, like rain from my eyes. The worst, most least imaginative metaphor in the history of songwriting, as like rain from my eyes, as tears, is so beautifully unimaginative. I adore it. So if that means I had to blow up Simpsons continuity forever and erase the past like we wanted to do with this hateful retcon, it was worth it for that awful, deliberately awful lyric.
We watched this, right, and I thought we're watching them in order, right? So we're watching season 19 all through order. We've had episodes where things don't feel like they're canon. I thought in the first 2 minutes of this episode, it was pretty well established that this isn't going to be canon. This is just going to be a bit of fun for 22 minutes. That was my thoughts for it. Well, I don't understand why people got so up and about it. It's just,
we were just having fun with the paradox. It was fun with the paradox.
I thought it was cool seeing The Simpsons in an era where they were the pop culture icon of the time, but watching these characters live through that era, but they'll actually be the pop culture icon of the time, if that makes sense.
They even mentioned in the show that a struggling Matt Groening created Futurama, so
yes. I
guess in that multiverse strand, there was no Simpsons, but there was a Matt Groening, and he only created Futurama. And then, Brendan, in another episode we did later called Do Pizza Bots Dream of Electric Guitars from season something, like in the last 4 or 5 years.
Is that the one Michael Price wrote about
That's what Michael Price
yes.
wrote.
Yep, we talked about it the other day.
And
Yeah.
that took place, the flashback, sort of act one of that, took place in the 90s. But then Homer, in that one, Homer is like a young teenager in the sort of the same era as that 90s show. And so, but yet, so he's working at the pizza place with the animals, the Chuck E. Cheese type place. And one of the kids in the audience is wearing a classic 90s Bart Simpson t-shirt.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So we just, again, that's part of the DNA of the show is deliberate contradiction, deliberate paradox. Don't take this too seriously.
Do you think comedy's changed now to the point where that 90s show came out in season 36? Wouldn't be like not acclaimed, but do you think people would be as bothered with it?
I don't think so, because now so many crazy things have happened, and
yeah.
I mean, so many. Rick and Morty had in a post Rick and Morty world where like every explosion of genre and a nihilistic shreddification of pop culture has happened to such a relentless degree in all these kind of really smart, weird cable cartoons. It wouldn't seem as sort of weird to people now.
I feel that 2000 show is something you should definitely consider. I reckon it'd go well.
But should it be with single Marge and single Homer?
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd
be a reality. That'd be a reality show, right?
Yeah, it could just be a whole thing. Like an episode. Well, we did another. Yeah, another one I wrote. Maybe the last one I actually wrote was the one was sort of took place in that same era. Haters and lovers of that 90s show, which is the show The Clown Stays in the Picture, where young Marge and young Homer are PAs on a 90s blockbuster in Mexico directed by Krusty.
I don't think I've seen this one.
Oh my God, Brendan. Oh, this is a great. I mean, so it's the same thing. It's young Homer and Marge in their relationship, but they're working as PAs on a 90s type in the era of 90s high concept movies on a kind of crazy space movie directed by Krusty in Mexico, and I really love that episode supremely much as well. And it has many jokes about the 90s and the era of the kind of the big logline high concept movie like Nuns Who Are Ninjas. Nunjas. You know, when they don't make movies like that anymore, right?
I know, right?
They don't make
all comic book movies are all serious as well. All the Batman movies are serious. I just want fun again.
Well, it's weird because like Wolverine and Deadpool is like unbelievably fun, and it has as many jokes as like Airplane. I mean, not the same types of jokes, but it is every scene, with the exception of like the big feeling scenes, are as jammed with comedy and craziness and visuals and explosions and slapstick and him saying crazy weird things as any comedy you would ever see, right?
Yeah.
But yet people don't make just comedies. That has to be another genre. Or Barbie, which also is as dense with jokes as a Simpsons episode and has many Simpsons-style jokes in it, which all people loved, and they laughed through the whole thing, and yet people are afraid to make just comedies. You know, it has to be another thing that's also with Simpsons-level comedy density inside it.
Well, we need a Simpsons sequel then. Hurry up.
Working on it.
So if they came to you tomorrow and said, guys, we want a sequel, do you think you've got the idea there ready to go? Not fully fleshed out, but we've got a pretty good sense of what we want for a sequel if it was required.
I think we could do it. I just would want it to be. I wouldn't want it to be a story that was trying to out-movie the last movie. I would rather just have it be a great family story that was rich enough to sustain for 76 minutes or 82 minutes or however long animated movies are.
It's probably going to be a Disney Plus exclusive, right, if they do it? Or do you think they'd have to go to the cinema?
I don't know. I mean, animated movies are very popular. They're having a huge resurgence, right? And
they 100% are.
And movies that people have nostalgia for, like Inside Out, like, okay, maybe there's nostalgia there. I don't know. It's a high-level conversation. But I would just say, to me, it's like, let's not do the Simpsons multiverse movie. Let's just do a great family story about the characters that is worthy of holding your filmic attention for 72 minutes.
I feel like the teaser trailer would just have to be Just nothing there, and all of a sudden the monorail goes by, and it's like monorail. You'd sell a million tickets.
Maybe not though, because in the one experience I had from the first movie was there aren't so many super fans that would actually make the movie a hit. You know, it has to.
You don't think?
There are a lot of people who are familiar with the show, but the number of like crazy super fans, I'm not sure. I think it has to be something that you would almost write it as if they haven't watched The Simpsons. They don't watch The Simpsons religiously, and this is something we have to really engage them with, as if this was not. We can't coast or even on the success of the franchise. And there's a lot of jokes in the first movie about trying to coast on it, and a lot of those didn't even score that well, you know? And so, like, when Homer says, haha, you know, you're watching a movie, he's watching the Itchy and Scratchy movie,
yeah.
He says, haha, you're paying to watch something you get for free at home. Like, that's a meta joke, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to do that anymore. I would just want to, like, is this story funny, emotional, gripping, you know, edge of your seat, hug your kids kind of a story? And yes, it should be silly and have Simpsons-style comedy, but it doesn't have to, like, reinvent meta relationship with audiences, and because so much of that has happened already.
Yeah, but that was the novelty of the first one. It was the first movie, so that worked for that one.
Mm-hmm. Like, I would just want this to be a classical movie storytelling with great characters and great comedy and great visuals and maybe some more songs. Maybe more songs. Who knows?
That's one thing I thought the first one missed was the song and dances. Yeah, that's one thing. And
there was a big song that was cut from the first movie.
Oh shit!
It was in the beginning of the movie. It was called Springfield Saturday Night, Everybody Go Berserk. And it was kind of about everyone in Springfield partying and trashing the town.
Is that on the Blu-rays or the DVDs? Is that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe this is breaking news, but you know, he really slowed it down. It was a great song. It just kind of slowed it down. You wanted to get to you don't want your Act 1 to be, you want the movie to be 2/3 Act 1. Because they're still going to Alaska. There's a dome. There's mutants. There's a lot of stuff happening in there.
Well, it's been fun chatting to you, Mr. Matt Selman. I was sitting there just really appreciating you getting out your grievances about that 90s show. And it all made sense to me.
It's like, I know I sound defensive and annoyed, but like, it's just, I don't totally understand why people want to think it's a retcon when it's not. I mean, I'm just watching that show. I'm just like, some of my favorite jokes we ever did are in that show, which ones? Which are that the acronym for grunge is
for grunge, yeah, has grunge in it.
Rising nihilist grunge energy. So grunge is in its own acronym. And speaking of paradoxes, right?
Yep.
So that to me is like, I don't think I'd ever seen that. I think we're the first person to do that joke of acronym with word of acronym in acronym, right? And then I love the Marvin Cobain Back to the Future reference.
That was fun.
I love that we brought Weird Al, classic Weird Al. After having modern Weird Al in an earlier show, we brought classic 90s glasses Hawaiian shirt Weird Al back in I think an even better parody of an original song called Brain Freeze, which I think is a very Weird Al type of comedy idea that he would think is funny. We got Kurt Loder, right? Mm-hmm. Actual Kurt Loder. I mean, who's
reporting from the 90s?
90s is Kurt Loder. And, you know, Seinfeld and like
that was cool. Guy was just like, I don't know, he thought it was a bit on the nose, but for me, I really loved just hearing that Seinfeld theme in the Simpsons universe.
The music clearance for this episode must have been crazy.
Oh, the song choices you chose,
we had like closing time,
closing time, unbelievable.
Symphony, so I guess we had to pay the Rolling Stones for that. I mean, wasn't that the lawsuit that they stole that song?
Yeah, we talked about that in the review. It's like poor. What's his name? Is it Brandon, the singer?
I forget.
Right, Richard Ashcroft. Richard Ashcroft, yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, it's just the song choices you chose for that episode were fantastic. And whenever you hear closing time, you immediately are taken back to the 90s.
And the parodies also are terrifyingly close to the originals. I don't know how that happened, but they're on TV. And then at the end we took a shot at George W. Bush. Oh, there'll never be a worse president than Clinton. And then there was one 1,000 times worse than George W. Bush. There's one of your Simpsons predictions for you.
Oh, God, let's not get into predictions, eh? Oh, I saw that you were a bit shitty about people saying, hey, they predicted that the Symphony Orchestra and Cypress Hill. It's like, it's not a prediction if they just copy.
Right. If they love it and they replicate it, that's like a homage, I believe.
Yeah.
the word for it. Homage.
Oh man, so
And
good.
also, I was noticed that like that joke about the annoying professor won't put a book on his shelf unless he's read it. I also won't do that. That's
Really?
why I'm a pedantic, unbearable snob.
So you leave it there until it's been read, and then it can go away. Is that
No,
the
no,
way it
no,
works?
opposite. I don't put it on the shelf until I've read it, and then it goes on the shelf. You see it on the shelf, it's been read, and I find it morally wrong to display a book that has not been read.
What's your thoughts on me owning movies, Blu-rays, whatever, on the shelf that I haven't watched yet? Is that the same thing?
Well, I know I don't care about Blu-ray. Blu-ray display is not.
I don't display them. They're just on the shelf.
Right,
I'm not
that's
like I'm going,
the
check out my Blu-ray collection.
Also, for when like whatever. Hopefully, this won't happen. But if the world internet ever went down and you only had electricity, it'd be great to have a few Blu-rays around, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's so dependent on precious streaming. You know, you can see the grid taking some hits, and then you have electricity and an old Blu-ray player and a book of Like I have 3 books of DVDs and Blu-rays. Why would I throw those away? They take up this much space. They're just like a little backup plan.
Do you think you would ever write a book about your time on the show?
I don't know. I've forgotten everything. No one cares. Nothing happened. And I don't know.
You don't reckon?
I don't reckon. When the show ends, I just want to move on. And some people who
You'll never move on from The Simpsons, right? I mean, until
people who, well, if I can make money from it, I'll do that. But like,
yeah.
definitely some former Simpsons people who've done excellent work
Mike Reese is one.
do seem to live in the nostalgia zone as a big part of their actual lives, which if that makes them happy, that's awesome. But I don't super want to do that because I know, Brandon, if we're, the work I've done, I'm so proud of it. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I'm so proud of these shows, but like they will never be as beloved as the kind of first 8 years, which is totally cool. I love the first 8 years, but I don't think me coasting on my quirky shows from seasons 25 to 30 to 40 is going to be so. It doesn't feel like as meaningful a journey. I'd rather just go back to Sydney with my wife and take her to the restaurants, and she'd be like, "Oh, that's gross. Why did you eat that?"
I remember when we were in that restaurant, and it's like, oh my god, it's Phil Rosenthal, and then Phil's like, and here's Matt, my friend Matt Selman. Do you watch The Simpsons? And the guy goes, not anymore.
I love that though. Like
I died a little bit inside as well.
that's fair. I mean, the show is. Who are we kidding? The show, it's HD. It's different. It's different. Like we still write the characters honestly who they are, but comedy has changed, writing has changed, the animation has changed. So many other animated shows have come out as reactions to The Simpsons, the classic years. Like, arguably the modern Simpsons is it's almost like a new, oh Jesus, get me in trouble. It's like a new show that's like a reaction to the original as well, or like 3 new shows based on people's styles of writing, and that's okay because the characters are so strong. Jim Brooks's emotional DNA is so strong. Matt Groening's drawings and comedic subversive sensibility is so strong. Like we can absorb that, but like you'd have to be pretty dishonest with yourself to say that modern Simpsons is connecting to people my age the way the original did because they were young then and they're old now. It's
and viewing habits have changed as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting a lot of good, The Simpsons are back. The Simpsons are good again.
Oh, the last 3 years have been fantastic compared to what... Yeah, they're definitely on the upswing, for sure.
And I think, every season is terrific, and it's just sort of different. You just try different things, and there's no bad season, right? They're all fun, and you watch any episode, and there's like 12 great jokes that you love at the very least, As
I said, we're watching them all in order, right? And I find that when you watch all these older episodes in order, like season 18, 19, it feels like there was a running gag in the writer's room that you guys just couldn't get enough of, and you snuck it into every episode. Can I ask, what was the deal with Sideshow Mel getting a line in every episode in season 18? The guy was barely seen throughout the first 12, 15 years. In season 18, he just had a line to speak like this in every episode.
I don't think it was a plan, but I do think if you're going to table reads and you notice a character scoring and has a funny character, has big energy, and also can say plot and tell the audience what's happening.
Yeah.
That's probably like, oh, that's useful, you know? And, you know, I mean, characters come in and out of favor with the writers through no plan, right? Like, we really like Shauna now. Shauna's like a relatively new character, you know, kind of like sort of.
Well, she's been in it for forever, but she's now getting more airtime. Is what you're
right,
saying.
and so we in the fact that she's Chalmers' daughter there's good from that, you know, the same way like when people discovered Ralph was Wiggum's son, right?
Yeah.
Like that, now we've got a lot of mileage from that over the years, and now Shauna being Chalmers' daughter is actually turned out to be a pretty clever, useful thing in terms of this very square single guy having a, you know, the ultimate teenage daughter who he has no control over. Like, he can control.
Is that what you're living through now? Is that like your life?
My kids are not Shauna's, that's for sure.
Thank God.
Parenting is never easy, but they're not Shauna's.
Yes. Well, Matt, thank you so much again for your time.
All right.
It's always lovely to talk to you. Thank
First
you
rule of showbiz: always leave the audience wanting more. I've already failed at that. So this is great. I love talking to you. I'm always around. Whatever. Edit out this yappity stuff, and but definitely watch the premiere. I don't know when it's going to air.
Well, we get it a few days after you guys. So
end of September, the premiere, which is definitely a big swing. And then we have that great Halloween with Denim coming up, and then sort of a parody of like how American, you know, kind of partisan, super divided politics have become kaijus, world destroying kaijus. And then when we did like a kind of a Hammer horror movie, which is like an old 60s, you know, crazy, scary, bloody, histrionic horror movie where we tried to get like kind of jump scares. Tried to do a lot of jump scares. Not as easy to do a jump scare in animation as it is in live action. We discovered.
I can imagine that. Yeah. Is there going to be a lot more non-canon episodes? 'Cause I felt, was it last season or season before? There was like 7 or 8 that felt like just non-canon episodes, and they're the ones I tend to enjoy the most.
Sure.
I feel like that's your influence, your fingerprints coming into the show, which is great because
let's just. There's nothing we shouldn't try.
Yeah.
So definitely, the premiere has, I'll say, format breaking energy.
Get your pitchforks ready.
Okay, buddy.
All right, thanks again, Matt.
Talk to you soon.